Hey, everybody, welcome to Vision Pros. So glad you're here. So glad you're in this conversation. And I am delighted to have on the show today a gentleman named Matt Kutz. He is an author, he is a doctor, he is an outdoor enthusiast, just to name a few of the things. But today we're talking about becoming epic. Matt Kutz, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Fletcher. Glad to be here.
Yeah, right on. Hey, I like to start off the shows with a win because we got a lot of stuff going on in the world that doesn't feel good, and a lot of people are practiced at focusing on what's not working well. But I want to hear from you, professionally or personally. What's a win for you?
Yeah. So a big win I had recently is actually grandkids. I mean, that's a big win. That's fun. My son recently had a daughter. My other son is going to have a son here in a couple weeks. So a big win for me and my wife as we're moving into the grandparent season of life, and that's a huge win for us. We absolutely love it. So far, everything they say about being a grandparent is absolutely true. Um, my little granddaughter gets everything she wants, and I don't care what her dad says. So,
I love that, and I can totally appreciate it because we have our first grandbaby. She's 10 months old, so I'm new to the grandparenting scene as well. And I gotta concur, I am loving it. So much fun.
yeah, big win for us.
Yeah, right on, right on. That's great. Hey, so the next question I'm going to ask you is about your vision, but I'm a big fan of defining words, and sometimes take it right out of the dictionary, but sometimes I pull them out of my head. And so I want to talk about vision and what a vision is, because this is called Vision Pros, right? And so I define vision as a clarified and detailed story which exists as possibility and is intended to be brought forth from nothingness into the physical realm.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, having said that, what I'm curious to know from you, Matt, is what is that clarified, detailed vision that has existed as a possibility up here that you want and intend to bring forth into the physical realm?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, to be concise, my vision is to help people actualize and realize their hidden potential or unrealized potential, and that I love the idea of taking it from the hidden to the seen because I am convinced that people have capacities within them that many times are dormant or unknown, and so what I take great joy in doing. Another win that just makes my life worth living is helping people find what that is and then giving them any tools or resources that I can to actualize their dream in their life and helping them what I call move from fantasy to foresight in their life.
Mm,
Yeah.
I love that. Moving from fantasy to foresight.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. And that in order to do that, that's going to require some level of wisdom, right?
A lot. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a whole nother topic. But I love that. Yeah, I love that you brought that into that. Yeah, moving from fantasy to foresight. Oh, that's me. To me, that smacks of like a lot of intentional planning and and forecasting.
Yeah, it really does. I couch that in a term that I like to use. I've written about it as well, called contextual intelligence. And so often there are three particular areas to what I call 3D thinking. A big part of 3D thinking, the 3Ds are the three dimensions of time: hindsight, insight, and foresight. And when we talk about foresight and actualizing foresight, what I have found in my own career for my own self and then talking to the people I work with and even some of the clients I work with, there have a lot of confusion between fantasy and foresight. Everybody, it seems, is really good at fantasizing. I have this dream of this future and being out of debt, finishing my novel, being retired, living the high life, whatever it is. They have this fantasy that's out there. And then when I ask, okay, well, how are you going to get there? What strategies do you have to make that a reality? And they're just like, well, I'm just hoping it happens, really. And they're not really. And that's what I mean by moving from fantasy to foresight. We have to include intentional aspects of living. Now, part of that intentionality requires the proper integration of hindsight, because I am convinced, and the evidence in the scholarly research is very clear, that human beings are horrible at understanding hindsight, and we actually suffer
Mm,
from a condition known as hindsight bias, which
mm.
is basically misremembering the past. Right? We don't actually remember what actually happened, so we can't really know where we're going until we know where we've come from. So one of the big steps in moving from fantasy to foresight is going back and looking at what are the memories and experiences that you've had and how have they actually impacted your life, not what you think happened, but what actually happened. And that's the intentionality part you're talking about. And
Yes.
then teaching them the cues to pay attention to what's going on in real time. That's the insight. What's actually happening right now. Stop living in the past. Stop living in the future. Recognize this, and let's make that future happen now. So you bring that future, that vision into the present, which I believe we can do.
I love so much of what you just said. And I love that. I'm taking some notes. So if you see me right looking down, I'm taking some notes. Give me the 3D again:
Yeah, 3Ds: hindsight, insight, and foresight.
hindsight, insight, and foresight. Yeah. And I love what you're saying about getting curious about the hindsight,
Mhm.
because that really does inform a lot of the actions that we take, right, in our immediate life. And if we misunderstand the story about what actually happened, like you said, right? So we want to
Right.
get curious about what actually happened, not the story about what happened, but
Exactly.
what actually happened. Like really get curious, because as you likely know, our memories are only as accurate as the last time we remembered it,
That's right. And they
right?
change every time you recall it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So we really got to get curious about what are the facts and what was the story I created and wrapped those facts in,
Right.
right?
See, what humans are really good at is remembering the emotions of a memory, but we're horrible at remembering the details and facts of a memory. So most of the time when people are recalling something, they're actually remembering how they felt, not what
Yes.
actually happened. And then they, like you just said, they construct a story and a narrative that's been biased through all the things that have happened to them since that original memory, and they end up pulling out something that's completely different, even though the feeling or the emotion that they had might have been the same. How they
Yes.
remember it is usually completely different.
Exactly. And what you just touched on there reminds me of that quote by Maya Angelou. People will frequently forget what you said,
Right.
but what they remember is how they felt.
Right.
Right? Like
Absolutely true.
if we have a good time on this podcast, you know, in a year or two or three, you may not even remember what we talked about. But you're like, oh yeah, but I had a good time with Fletcher, or I
Right.
had a terrible time with that host, right?
Right.
Whatever it
Right.
is. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. We remember how we feel. Love that. So cool. And by the way, this is such great information for the public. Um, to some of our listeners, maybe they're very familiar with these concepts, but I love this specific content because I believe it is at the root of much of our suffering
Yeah.
and or much of our inspiration,
100%.
right? Yeah. So thanks for being up for this conversation. All right. Let me read just a brief blurb from your website so we can set the stage here for what I really want to talk to you about. On Matt's website, he writes, becoming epic is not the job of giants. It is in the details and decisions each of us must face every day. In a complex world where challenges seem to multiply every day, how do you rise above and thrive rather than stay mired in mediocrity? I love this so much. For much of my life, I was mired in mediocrity.
Yeah.
And and I absolutely thought that I was mediocre, and I loathed myself for that. Now, before I ask you questions, I want to say that it's so easy to find ourselves as mediocre or less than when we're playing the comparison game online,
Absolutely.
right? And as I read about becoming epic and some of the stuff you had on your website, it wasn't becoming epic um, as a competition to the next person, right? It was like, how do you rise above your own self-perceived mediocrity and become that epic version of yourself? Am I getting that
Yeah,
correct?
100%. Because one of the major diseases that humans have is what you just alluded to, and that's comparing ourselves to every other person around us. And we actually many times don't even know how to determine what success is or failure is unless we see someone else either failing, what we perceive as failing, or succeeding. And we have to stop that. We're not internally aware enough of our own capacity, our own vulnerability, our own abilities, our own purpose and destiny to even know that I'm living a great life right now, regardless of what someone else is or isn't doing. And I recently read this just actually on my plane ride yesterday. I read, when given the choice, this was an actual study done, I believe it was at Stanford. When given the choice between making $50,000 a year and everybody around you in your community is making $25,000 a year, that's choice one. Or you can make $100,000 a year and everybody in your community around you is making $250,000 a year. Which choice would you make? 76%, a majority of people pick, I'd rather have 50,000 because they're measuring their success not on actually what they can achieve, but by what everybody around them is doing. So I want to feel like I'm doing way better than everybody else, and then I'll be happy. Whether or not I could actually double what I'm making isn't even the point. I just don't want to be the person who's not as good as everybody else. And when we live that way, we are conceding to a mediocre life. And that's, to me,
Yeah,
a crime.
that is such a fascinating study, and I feel a bit sad about it,
Yeah.
right? Because because it paints very clearly the act of constantly comparing ourselves to others, coming up short. So that comparison game is a lose lose situation. We lose, and
Yep.
then those who we think are doing better than us, we resent or we have jealous. So we put something between in that relationship that doesn't feel good, right?
Yeah, and we also lose our capacity to add value to other people. And that to me is a big part of becoming epic, a big part of what I referred to a little while ago of being contextually intelligent is one of the things that someone who lives an epic life does is they add value to the people around them. And that value can come in different things, different ways. I mean, it doesn't just mean making someone, giving someone skills, tricks, and trades, on how to make more money or generate more revenue or get more clients. It's actually adding value to the quality and meaning and purpose of their life. I believe that's where joy really comes from. And when we're
Hmm.
talking about becoming epic, I mean, another easy way to look at this is living a life with joy or full of joy. And I think
Oh
that's what's
man.
important.
Oh man. Yeah, yeah, you nailed it. A life without joy, yikes.
Yeah.
Don't want that. Yeah, joy is one of the number one ways of being that I go after in life because it feels so good. Love that. So, next question. On your website, it says becoming epic. How excellence, perception, inspiration, compassion can be a remedy for mediocrity. So, excellence, perception, inspiration, compassion. Right. They all make up the word epic. Right.
I like that. That's
So,
right.
tell me before you dive into this, I just want to know. Give me a little bit about what's your why. I want to hear like why is all of this important to you?
Yeah, well, it's important. I mean, it's funny because 2 years ago I would have answered the question completely differently. But
Mm.
a big part of this idea of becoming epic actually happened because of a recent tragedy in my own life. And I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and then we found out that it metastasized and it spread, so it's my bones, lymph nodes, things like that. And that was 2 years ago. And this journey that I've been on of becoming epic and understanding this is really about it came as a result of that. One of the things that I also believe epic people do, and I've said this before in other venues and contexts, is we have to view chaos as a package that your potential arrives in. and
Mm.
we have to understand that the things that happen to you, the disruption, the uncertainty, the pain, the grief, the chaos, all of those things, I believe my whole life have not been meant or aren't meant to destroy you. They're meant to refine you and to bring out things in your life that were hidden, that you didn't know were there or were dormant. And so my why has become helping people understand, what is their hidden potential, what is their future self, and where is it hiding within them. And that really
Yeah.
motivates me, and that's even where the whole concept and idea of becoming epic came from, and those four, what I call maxims, or the epic maxims, came from. And somebody who discovers that, I think, strives to at least practice those four things.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had a kind of a wake up call in your own life, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm curious. I want to just go a little deeper on this. Why did it become important to you to like begin to help other people step into this? Like, why is that important to you? I understand
Yeah,
you had the cancer and everything, but
sure. I think it was the wrestling with, the finiteness of your life and mortality. I've been very active my whole life, involved in sport and things like that, and triathlons, half marathons, 5Ks, 10Ks, hiking, Appalachian Trail, other places, volcanoes in Rwanda, and all kinds of stuff. And so I've always been active. And when my cancer was diagnosed, I was one of those guys who just, it was a total surprise because I had no real symptoms. I was, as far as I knew, I was healthy, I was active, had no side effect, no symptoms, anything like that. So when you get hit like that, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, not because everybody kind of feels invincible. It's not going to happen to me. And it's not just about me getting older. No, I was really in this place where we were completely blindsided.
yeah,
Excuse me. And so that really forces you to reframe your why, because all of a sudden I went from I'm going to live forever to like, oh my God, I could only have a few years left. And so, and then you realize that, tomorrow is not promised to anyone. So you have to go through. And I wondered how many other people are out there
mm,
thinking they're fine,
mm-hmm.
and really if they were, excuse me again, thinking they're fine. And if they were surprised by something, how disappointed would they have been in the life they lived or the mediocrity they settled for? Fortunately, I've been blessed and in a position when that happened to me. I was like, if I died now, I'd die a happy man. I lived a good life, did a lot of fun things. Of course, I'm not ready to, and I've got, 30 more years of great stuff that I plan on doing. But a lot of people get to that place, I believe, and they have regrets. And I don't want, the people who are in my circle and people who cross my path to find something, anything out that's the adversity that comes to them and have regrets about the life they've lived so far. So I began to do this work and frame this concept and idea and hopefully get it out there in front of as many people as I can.
Yeah. So, did you, as a result of going through this, did you kind of have like a sense of urgency of like, or are you seeing like suffering, the needless suffering for people, and you think, and is there like some vision of like, I can
Yeah.
help these people reduce their suffering and help them step into something that feels better in their life?
That's a great question. And to be honest, my first reaction is no, I don't know that I've noticed needless suffering. But what I've come to realize and know is that many people are silently suffering,
Hmm.
and they don't really say it, they don't really talk about it, and they lack, or I don't want to say they lack the bravery because that's not fair or right, but they somehow don't believe that they deserve better or can do better, and they never talk about that because that's being vulnerable. So I found that most people feel that way, and it's just like a rule of averages. You can assume everybody does, and every once in a while somebody will say, I'll meet somebody like you and say, no, I'm doing fine, I'm doing great, I'm doing what I want to do, being who I want to be and all that. But that's much more rare than the person who's like, yeah, I think I could be doing better and doing more. And so I think I came to terms with that during this as I went through my own struggles, talk to people around me, and realize there's a lot of people silently suffering out there
Hmm.
who
Hmm.
who don't believe they can do better than who they are, and that the mediocre life they've settled for is good enough. And that's how I describe it in the book, is the curse of good enough. I'm not the best, but I'm not the worst. So, and they settle for not being the worst. And to me, not being the worst, again, goes back to what we were talking about before, is they're having the wrong framework and approach to life in general. It's not about not being the worst, because then you're just comparing yourself to someone else.
Right.
And you can always find someone worse off than the last person or worse off than you. So then what you do, instead of trying to get better, you try to find somebody who's worse. And then you can just stay in that spot of not having to improve and not having to be better. And that to me is a real tragedy and a motivator for why we need to get people out of the mindset of just trying to find someone to be better than, and trying themselves to just improve on the capacity and the ability that they have.
Yeah. Okay. So good. Yeah. So again, we're kind of practiced at thinking that we're mediocre,
Yeah,
but that doesn't necessarily mean that's accurate. And
correct.
your book, Becoming Epic, is a blueprint for stepping out of that rehearsed mediocrity into into something that is different
Yeah.
than what you've been settling for.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a measurable thing, that and a milestones that you can achieve to getting better. Because the first time someone takes a step forward and does better than they thought they could do, it becomes addictive.
yes.
And you get a runner's high from that. You get the extreme sport high from something like that. It's like, I didn't think I could do this. In fact, just this morning I was on a doctoral dissertation defense, and this particular student, um, first generation student, first person in her family to go to college, let alone get a doctoral degree, all this kinds of stuff. And she never thought, she explained even in her, I never even would allow myself to imagine that I could accomplish what I've accomplished. And now that she did that, she goes, the sky is the limit. Now she wants to start a business and do this and do that. And it was just, and that's what I mean, is as soon as someone does something that they were told they could never do, or that they shouldn't try to do, when they accomplish that, all of a sudden they see that they're better than they thought they were. And they recognize, I've been settling for this mediocre life, and these mediocre relationships, this mediocre standard, and all of a sudden, no, I can do better. And then these four maxims: excellence, perspective, inspiration, and compassion, are four things that you can begin to focus on today that can help you move towards that epic life.
Yeah. Yeah. And when people begin to do that, their life becomes about impact.
Right.
And right. And that's what's exciting to me. The reason I'm excited about your work is because I want more people to step up into the potential impact they can make for the good of the world.
Uh,
That's my selfish desire for people, for why I want them to become epic. Because we want people to step up and provide value, make a difference for others. And when we do that, we all get lifted up.
Absolutely. And it goes in every direction, because I think a lot of times there's fathers, there's mothers, there's kids that don't even believe they can add value to their family. And so it
Yes.
could be something as small as that, or something as great as, impacting an entire community or industry or something like that. So I never want to minimize even impact, because people say, well, I'm only going to impact these 2 kids in my house. Well, listen, if you do that well, the exponential effect of that can be
Yes.
incredible. So take that seriously too.
Exactly. Hey, last question. So, because our time's up, and I definitely want to bring you back if you're up for it, so we can dive into excellence, perception, inspiration, and compassion. But before we end the show today, where can people check you out? Where can they get a copy of your book and get started on becoming epic?
Yeah, well, thanks for that. The best place to go for any of this is my website, MatthewKutz.com. And, Kutz is how you spell Kutz. So I'd love to see you there. You can, my email is there. My contact information is there. All my books are there. Some of my research is there, and you can download that. And so all of that's there. We have that website. We also have another website called Battle for the Bulge, which is a foundation for prostate cancer awareness and education. We sponsor 5K races as fundraisers for prostate cancer awareness, and there's some materials on there. I actually just wrote. I have 2 new books. The Becoming Epic is launching now. Also, the book Diagnosed is also just come out last week. That's my memoir, so to speak, or my story about the prostate cancer approach and the battle framework that I use to get to the point of actually even talking about living an epic life.
Right on. You're a prolific writer, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, radiation knocked me down, so I had a lot of time to sit at home and write. So yeah.
Excellent. Matt Kutz, Becoming Epic. Thank you for being on Vision Pros, and we look forward to having you back.
I'd love it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your vision and becoming a Vision Pro yourself.